Salvete discipuli, and welcome to part 2 of In Palaestra. So at this point, you should have translated this passage. You should have it in front of you so you can make any necessary corrections as we go over it. So let me just adjust my face, move myself over here. All right, and here we go. Okay, so in palaestra, right, in this chapter, we've got indirect objects. So hopefully you were kind of able to puzzle some of that out, and we'll see how you did. So in the palaestra, or the exercise area, so Caecilius gave a discus to Quintus. So again, we have got a verb of giving, and then this is one of our new dative case endings. So Caecilius gave a discus, direct object accusative, to Quintus, dative indirect object, because he was celebrating his birthday. So we saw diem natalem. This is one of our vocab words for this chapter. Then Caecilius led, duco ducere duxi ductus, past tense. Caecilius led his son to the baths, or the bathhouses, where there was a palaestra. A slave was carrying the discus, for Quintus, right? So was carrying the discus for Quintus. So again, a dative noun here, translated as to or for, whichever one makes the most sense in the context of the sentence. Caecilius and his son, after they entered the baths, hurried to the palaestra, or to the exercise area. A huge crowd was in the palaestra. Quintus, go to our verb, caught sight of or saw many young men and athletes. Quintus saw many statues in the palaestra. The Pompeians have put up statues for the most famous or most well-known athletes. So notissimus is most famous or very famous athletes. So atletis notissimis, these are dative plural endings, indirect objects. So the Pompeians put up statues, direct object, for the most famous athletes, the most well-known athletes, said Caecilius. In the palaestra, there was a huge colonnade. So again, colonnade, just rows of columns surrounding the area. Spectators were standing in the colonnade. So they're standing among the columns. The slaves were offering wine, direct object, to the spectators, plural dative here, indirect object. Slaves were offering wine to the spectators. Again, you can translate this as the slaves were offering the spectators wine, but we do want to keep that to or for the spectators there, just for getting that specific grammar really clear. Quintus saw a crowd near the colonnade. A huge athlete was standing in the middle of the crowd, right? In media turba, in the middle of the crowd. Whew, there goes my face. Who is that athlete, right? Ille is one of our new words, but it also gives you athleta ille. Who is that athlete? Asked Quintus. That is Milo, a most famous athlete, or a very famous athlete, responded Caecilius. Caecilius and Quintus hurried to Milo. Quintus showed his new disc to the athlete. So again, a verb of showing, indirect object, to the athlete. So he showed the new disc, direct object, to the athlete, indirect object. So this is one of those cases where this AE can be a nominative plural ending, But we've already, if we look at our verb, ostendit, this is a T singular verb ending. And we already have Quintus as my subject. Quintus showed. So this has to be a dative indirect object. Quintus showed the disc to the athlete. Milo, after he looked at or inspected the discus, he proceeded to the middle of the palaestra, the exercise area. The athlete looked around the palaestra and threw out the discus. The discus, and then here we have the longe per auras evolavit, this is here, the discus flew a long way through the air, or flew through the air for a long way, flew far through the air, however you want to say that. The spectators praised the athlete. A slave, quaesiwit, this is looked for or searched for. A slave searched for the disc for Milo. This is a dative singular indirect object. He searched for, the searched for, that for is part of this verb, searched for the discus. For Milo, that for is going with the indirect object Milo. The slave, after he found the discus, returned to Milo. The slave offered, or was offering, the discus to the athlete, right? Another dative indirect object. However, the athlete did not accept the discus. The discus is not mine, said Milo. The slave handed over the discus to Quintus. Then the young man also threw out the discus. The discus again flew through the air. The discus, however, percussit hit a statue. Oh dear. Oh no, shouted Caecilius. The statue has a broken nose. Quintus was laughing. The Pompeians were laughing. However, Milo was not laughing. Why are you not laughing? Asked the young man. Milo was very angry. Pest, responded the athlete. It is my statue, or that is my statue. So Quintus accidentally broke the nose off of Milo's statue. Whoopsies. All right, so make any corrections as needed. Again, we're seeing a bit more complex sentences happening now that we've got indirect objects going on. So you have to really be paying very close attention to those endings. Again, go back to the kind of the rules of translating and follow those steps. So find the verb, find your subject, is there a direct object, and then what else is left in the sentence to kind of modify everything else. If it's a verb of giving, showing, handing over, offering, those sorts of verbs, there will often be an indirect object, right? So pay attention to that. Subjects are usually the first word in the sentence or at the beginning of a sentence. Indirect objects will often come before a direct object in word order. Direct objects, accusative endings. If you have an indirect object, you have to have a direct object as well, right? So keep that in mind. Direct objects, accusative endings are the easier ones to recognize, especially in the singular, because they're going to end in that M. And then in the plural, it's AS, OS, or ES. So know those endings, recognize them, and then puzzle through the rest of it. Again, one of the biggest hangups is going to be vocabulary. So really make sure you guys are spending that time practicing that vocab. New chapters, yes, but also go back and review previous chapters of vocab as needed. Take a look at the practicing your vocabulary or test your vocabulary feature on Cambridge Elevate. It's really nice because if you click up to stage 9 and then pick like 50 or 100 words, it'll give you practice for all of the vocab that has been in all these chapters. So practice your vocab and then again, make corrections as needed for this. Email me your translations so you can get credit for this. And then there is one more passage for this chapter for this week. So translate that passage. That's going to be document on Google Classroom, so no video for that one. You're just going to type in translation. Same thing though, again, make sure you're paying attention to those noun endings, keep an eye out for your indirect objects, follow those steps for translating sentences if you need to. And yeah, email me if you have any questions, if you need any help with any of these assignments. All right. Otherwise, Walete discipuli, and I will see you in our next lesson.